ScotlandShop HQ is based down here in the Scottish borders, my favourite place in the world. And this area is renowned for its tranquillity, space, exceptional beauty and friendly inhabitants. It boasts a stunning and varied landscape with rolling hills and moorland to the west and gentler valleys and agricultural plains in the east where our offices are based. The River Tweed runs through southeastern Scotland, bubbling up from a small spring named Tweed's Well and fed by Tala water, which provides Edinburgh's water supply, and Lynn water in the Pentland Hills. It winds its way down from Peebles and out to the sea at Berwick. This river is famous for its salmon fishing, but also for its textiles industry that the Borders is so famous for and relies on for its economy. On the website, as well as tartan, we have some beautiful tweeds, and given we're standing by the River Tweed, I thought we should tell the story of the accident that resulted in it being called Tweed. The term tweed was coined quite accidentally in 1826 as the result of a misread label on a shipment of woven wool tweeds from weaver William Watson and Sons of Commercial Road, Hawick, to a London cloth merchant. The word tweel had perhaps not been written clearly on the label, but to the merchant, tweed made complete sense as these fabrics were chiefly used in those days by gentlemen for shooting and fishing, with the nearby River Tweed being a fashionable destination for such pursuits. With the misunderstanding then perpetuated by the customer reordering another consignment of tweeds, William Watson chose not to correct the mistake. Realising he had a fantastic name for his product and recognising the branding opportunity, he promptly adopted the term as description for his mill's high-quality sporting cloths. But the beautiful Borders hasn't always been such a welcoming, peaceful part of the British Isles. The borderlands were first established by the Romans in 122 AD, when they built Hadrian's Wall from the Solway Firth in the west to the Tyne River in the east. Long before there were Scotsmen and Englishmen, this great rampart established a dividing line, but it was over 1,000 years later, in 1237, that the political boundary that defines the Borders was created. From the 14th to the 17th century, the Borders were dominated by lawless clans. Their allegiance was seldom to the Scottish or English crowns, but only to the clan. This vicious and destructive period raged for centuries, heightened by the ongoing hostility between the kings of England and Scotland as they vied for control of the border country. The English and the Scots, previously close and friendly neighbours, stole cattle, sheep and horses from each other in increasingly violent raiding parties known as reivers. It was during these wilderness years, in around 1530, that the term blackmail was coined. It described the protection purchased by families to avoid losing their livelihood. Local commerce and international trade withered as the image of the border region became synonymous with lawlessness and danger. The ancient divisions between sections of the Borders were known as marches, and in each year riders would mark their frontiers with a common riding. One such event in Hawick celebrated its 500th anniversary in 2014 and was described by the Rough Guide as one of the best parties in the world. It's apt that a tradition born out of conflict has become a celebration of the Borders' heritage and history. Today the people of the Borders are far more welcoming, known for their ready wit and hospitality, and they're justly proud of their heritage and the natural beauty of the region. The Borders people retain a distinctive character born out of those turbulent times with a culture of ballad and poem that inspired one of Scotland's greatest sons, Sir Walter Scott. and welcome to the amazing historic Dryburgh Abbey. Dryburgh was founded in 1150 by Hugh de Moreville, one of the many Anglo-Normans who came north with King David I in the first half of the 12th century. As High Constable of Scotland, de Moreville was one of the most powerful men in Scotland and had estates throughout the Borders, Ayrshire and England. His son was one of the murderers of Archbishop Thomas de Becket of Canterbury in 1170. The abbey was established by Premonstratensian canons in 1150, and the construction of the abbey would have been spread over at least 100 years. Dryburgh became the premier house in Scotland of the French order, which was established by St Norbert of St in 1121 at Premontre. Its 6 Scottish houses also include Whithorn Priory. However, Dryburgh was never as wealthy or as influential as the abbeys at Kelso, Jedburgh and Melrose, which you can still visit today. And if you take the Border Abbeys tour, you can see them all in one go, and you can even cycle if you're feeling energetic. During the Wars of Independence, the abbey did suffer 4 savage attacks, the most famous in 1322. Edward I's soldiers turned back to set fire to Dryburgh, having heard its bells ringing out as the English army retreated. Dryburgh has an amazing feeling of peace and tranquillity, and both the spiritual and domestic homes of the Brethren remain largely complete. Visitors today can see the nave, the canon's own choir area, the north and south transepts or arms, cloisters buildings, the dormitory for the resident clerics, a processional door into the south aisle, a chapter house where the canons met, and a warming house with a large fireplace. In the 19th century, the 11th Earl of Buchan, a descendant of the Erskines, a senior cleric at Dryburgh and a founder of the Society of Antiquities in Edinburgh, created a magnificent garden within the cloisters and erected a strange obelisk to James I and II. The cloister retains its feeling of privileged enclosure and is a beautiful place to be married. Its highlight is the 13th century chapter house. Both its painted wall plaster and wonderful acoustics survive. In the 1700s, the ivy-clad ruin attracted the attention of David Erskine, the 11th Earl of Buchan and other founder of the Society of Antiquaries of Scotland. Buchan bought Dryburgh House and set about creating a charming landscape in which the ancient abbey figured prominently. When he died in 1829, he was laid to rest in its sacristy. Sir Walter Scott, antiquarian and novelist, and Buchan's close friend, was buried here 3 years later on the 26th of September 1832. His tomb is in the north transept, which he called St Mary's Isle. A third great Scot, Field Marshal Earl Haig, was interred beside Scott in 1928. Haig was Commander-in-Chief of the British Army in the First World War and created 1st Earl of Beamerside by a nation grateful for his contribution. Whenever we start investigating these things, we discover more and more interesting facts. And Macarena, who's behind the video camera, just now reminded me that this same family created the world-renowned Haig Club single grain whisky, which remained in the family until 1919. This brand is now owned by Diageo, who of course are about to become our neighbours when they open up their Johnnie Walker whisky experience on the corner of Princes Street, just 20 metres from our Edinburgh shop. We do love a good wedding here at ScotlandShop, and we spend a lot of time chatting to brides and grooms, all about kilts, outfits and accessories and decorations to make their day very special. So we couldn't help when we visited Dryburgh Abbey without mentioning the Dryburgh Abbey Hotel, a splendid baronial country house which you can see behind me and which dates back to the mid-19th century. So the original house was constructed in 1845 as the private residence for the family of Lady Grizzel Bailey, and in 1875 Lord Jervis Wood, the brother of Lady Bailey, modernised the house and it stayed in the family's possession until 1929 when it was bought and converted into a tourist hotel. A few of my friends are married here at the Driver Abbey Hotel, and it provides the most amazing backdrop for your photos down by the river and at the Abbey. You can actually get married right in the Abbey, and just imagine walking down the path and round with your guests into the Abbey grounds. If you don't fancy being married in the Abbey itself, then you can just take over the hotel grounds, and if you've got 110 guests, you'll fill the hotel up and have it all to yourself. And you can even have your ceremony riverside, standing by the River Tweed.